The IEP is a very serious document. It is a legally binding document. It is something that you have to take the time as a parent to understand why this information is there, why your child is receiving these services, why you want to be in the know. Because they are very wordy. They are sometimes difficult to understand. So take the time to learn and have an understanding walking in the door so you can ask questions and understand what they're telling you, why they're doing this. Okay, good evening and welcome to Navigating Special Education. I'm Mark Jones, returning for episode 4. In this episode, we are going to tackle the IEP itself and talk about all the different components of it. We're going to get through as many parts of it as we can over the next 45 minutes to an hour so we can have you understanding exactly what is on that document, what it means, what the wording is, so you as a parent could possibly go into an IEP meeting and be fully aware of what's you're looking at, be fully aware of what is going to be written into an IEP that is going to be implemented for your child. There are important dates and information pertaining to all kinds of different information about your child. So I want to jump into this now. First off, I'm going to share something with you about from a past episode, and that is this document right here. Public Law 94-142 was enacted in 1976, and it gave us the foundation to follow our special education path. And it's been working that way ever since. It's been amended a number of times. So once again, this is the No Child Left Behind as we know it today. The part we're going to talk about today specifically in this is the IEP itself. So this came, the document I'm sharing with you right now. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to this, stop sharing that, and we're going to share the IEP document from the state of Pennsylvania. This document came from the Department of Education, patent from the state of Pennsylvania, Department of Education. This is the first page of the document that we call the IEP. In the last episode, I talked at length about the invitation that has to go out at least 10 days prior to the meeting with the date, time, place, attendees to the meeting. When that occurs, when you get everything set, the teacher should, special education teacher that's writing the document should have this prepared ahead of time. And a lot of times when you are writing, not a lot of times, every time you are sharing the first document at the meeting, there will be a watermark that says draft on it. That doesn't say that on here right now, but when I produce a document, it says draft on it because during the IEP meeting, every member of the IEP team has the opportunity to add information or delete information or requested information be changed. So this will outline for you the first couple sections of the IEP itself. This can get very long-winded, and I realize that, but this is very important for you as a parent or as a general educator or a special education teacher. This is what drives the student's placement in their educational program. So first off, we have this part here, and I'm actually able to draw on this. So student's name for this one, and you have to worry not look too closely at my writing here because I'm using a pen, and the pen is used through a mouse. So I'm drawing with the mouse. Student's name's Joe. That will repeat here. Joe. Okay. IEPT meeting date. This is the piece of information that goes out on the invitation for the IEP itself. So let's use today's date. We're at April 14th, 2026. So 4/14/26. The IEP implementation date, when the programs will begin. If we held it today, the implementation date is going to be the next day. If the IEP meeting is held on a Friday, you generally will write the following Monday. But for our purposes, the implementation date is going to be the 15th of April, if we were doing this today. The anticipated duration of services and programs is going to be 1 year later minus a day. So we're going to go with 4/13/27 as our next date. So the annual meeting will have to take place on or before that date for everything to be perfectly legal. Here, date of birth, obviously this is all demographic information. Date of birth, age, grade level, anticipated year of graduation, the local education agency. This is where the school district is going to list its name. So my school, we have kids from any number of different school districts, usually 9. We have between 9 and 10 school districts where kids attend our school because it's an approved private school for the state of Pennsylvania. That's, we'll just say Pittsburgh School District. Okay. So the LEA stands for Local Education Agency. And you'll see in the invitation and in the participants in this meeting, you'll have to have somebody you have to have an LEA from the school district to represent the school district, because there are legal ramifications to an IEP. There's financial ramifications to an IEP. There's a lot of things that go into the IEP itself. Then you're going to look at the county of residence also. So I happen to live in Allegheny County, so that would be listed. Then you're going to put the parents' demographics on there, name and address of parent, guardian, or surrogate. So it could be natural parents, could be grandparents, could be adoptive parents. It could be a placement that the kid's in at that point in time. Could be a foster placement, and you're going to have a home phone and work phone. Those are somewhat, very synonymous these days. You're going to have those two things usually the same. Other information, this might be a place where you're going to list an email address, because a lot of people do like to participate or get information on an email address. So this section here, the LEA and parent have agreed to make the following changes to the IEP without convening an IEP meeting as documented by. As the IEP process progresses, you're going to hold your meeting. It's going to be in a draft form, and you are going to eventually finalize the IEP. There are computer cloud programs, IEP Writer, Power School, that you can write an IEP in, and you can go from a draft to a final copy. Once it's finalized and the IEP is signed by everybody involved, which I'll show you where those sections are next, you have to get the IEP finalized. But if you have to reopen it, here you have a place for date of revisions. The participant enrolls in those revisions. The IEP sections amended are going to need to be looked at. And you can do that within all your programs. You can use that in all your programs to open the IEP back up and get it revised. A lot of times you might be changing a related service, or you might be changing a bus. You might be adding something to the specially designed instruction. You might be changing a goal in the middle of an IEP because the goal might have been deemed to be somewhat inappropriate, or it might be the kid has finalized and earned the goal. So there's a lot of different aspects of looking at this that you have to take into consideration when you're revising the IEPs. And when you do that, a lot of times you don't have to totally reconvene an IEP meeting, but some people are going to want to do that. to get together, but for a revision, you don't have to necessarily get everybody in a room sitting at a table or on a Zoom call to get that done. Next page of the IEP. This is the IEP team signatures. The Individualized Education Program team makes decisions about the student's program and placement. The student, parents, the student special education teacher, and a representative from the local education agency, LEA, are required members of this team. Signature on this IEP documents attendance, not agreement. When you're signing this, me as a special education teacher right here, there's a place for the parent, there's a place for the student. In a public school, you're going to want, if a kid has a learning disability in their in general education classes, you're going to want a regular education teacher there. You're going to want your LEA to sign this. If a kid is in the VOTEC, career tech ed rep's going to sign. You can have people from CYS or in-home services attend the meeting. And there's also a section here for the teacher of the gifted. And because we talked about earlier in earlier episodes, the gifted is an exceptionality that requires specially designed instruction within the school code and within the IEPs. So this is the signatures. People are going to print their name. They're going to sign. Once again, this just documents their attendance at the meeting. That doesn't mean you agree with everything. There's a part further on at the end of the IEP. It's not at the end of the IEP. It is a separate document called a NOREP, Notice of Recommended Educational Placement, that parents have to agree to. And we'll get into that a little bit later on, what a NOREP is. So this, once again, is just you're showing you attended the meeting. And if the meeting's on a Zoom and the let's say the parent or guardian attends via Zoom, rather than having them sign, you just write attended meeting via Zoom, and the student could do the same. One of these community edge agency reps might do that. You have to notate that on there, how they attended. If not, you have to have an actual signature on there. It says here, the IEP team must invite the student if transition services are being planned or if the parents choose to have the student participate. So a student can participate at any age in an IEP if the parents want that. By law, when the kid is going to turn 14 or older during the duration of an IEP, or when they're obviously above the age of 14, they have to be invited to the meeting to talk about transition services. Transition services is something we'll get into here a little bit later on when we're talking about the IEP. That is the section of the IEP that addresses the kid moving forward through their high school, junior high school career. What are we doing to support them to be able to be an independent, fully functioning adult, or as close as possible? You write a transition plan, and in transition plans, there's three goals that have to be written. One is what their future educational plans are. They're going to go to college, go to tech school. They're going to enter right into the workforce, and then you're also going to talk about their employment goal. Are they going to enter competitive employment, or are they going to enter the place of their choice when they graduate from post-secondary education from a VOTEC school or a 4-year college or a 2-year degree at maybe a community college. As determined by the LEA as needed for transition services and other community services. A teacher of the gifted is required when writing an IEP for a student with a disability who is also gifted. One individual listed above must be able to interpret the instructional implications for any evaluation results. This part here is pretty important. So if you're having an initial IEP where you just did a evaluation report for a kid who was newly identified, you're going to want to have on this the school psychologist who wrote the RR, or the teacher who wrote the ER. I'm sorry, not RR, ER. You're going to want to have those people there so they can talk about what they wrote, why they wrote it, and why they're making the recommendations they are. So a school psychologist would be somebody that will be able to interpret the instructional implications for any evaluation results. People can also, let's say your in a public school, you might not have enough substitute coverage. This person right here, you're going to want to have them do written input into the IEP, and you're going to notate on here, general education teacher was unable to attend. They have provided the following written input. And this box could be expanded very dramatically with information. So that is that part of the IEP. This just allows you to have people to participate in a meeting that may not be able to get there. Transfer of rights at age of majority. For the purposes of education, the age of majority is reached in Pennsylvania when an individual reaches 21 years of age. Likewise, for purposes of the Individuals with Disabilities Act, the age of majority is reached for students with disabilities when they reach 21 years of age. So kids with IEPs, specifically more your intellectually disabled students and sometimes your emotional disturbance students, can attend school up until the age of 21 years. And that is an option that a lot of parents do take when the kids are more severely involved. More of your severely involved autistic children, more of your life skills students can stay until they're 21 years of age. And for some of your parents, you may not realize that, but you do have that option. Most of your general education students who may have learning disability and just need help with testing and things of that nature are going to probably not take that option. They're going to graduate on time with their regular classmates. And these kids here, the ones that stay to 21 years of age, they do not graduate with a diploma. They graduate via their IEP. And their IEP goals become their standards that they graduate by. So you can graduate high school via your IEP. It helps. It's a caveat that helps kids with severe disabilities to graduate high school at 21 years of age rather than usually the 17 or 18-year-olds who are going through the graduation ceremony in late May or June every year, who have met the state and national standards for education. So moving on with the Individualized Education Program, you have the next part is called the procedural safeguards notice. This goes back to the parent's right to go through the process of being able to go through a due process hearing or to challenge the district's either non-placement or placement choices. And it gives parents an opportunity to know their procedural safeguards. And each parent has to sign off on here. The district has to provide them in writing or electronically, via an email. You can attach the parents' rights to the invitation, which I do. That is an important part of the IEP because parents, as a parent, you have to know that you do have these rights, and it's very wordy. So it says, I have received a copy of the procedural safeguards notice during this school year. Procedural safeguards notice provides information about my rights, including the process for disagreeing with the IEP. The school has informed me who I may contact if I need more information. That's usually going to be the LEA person, the local education agency person that you're going to contact and say, hey, I don't agree with this, and we're going to have to, either go to a mediation or go to a due process hearing. The next section is the medical assistance program billing notice, applicable only to parents who have consented to the release of billing information to medical assistance programs. Kids with more severe disabilities, more of your, maybe a spina bifida, or kids with physical issues need some more intense services provided. This is a way for the parents in the school district, basically the school district, to bill for these services. I'm not going to get into reading that a whole lot. It's very wordy. So that's what that is. That section of the IEP. Parents have to sign off on that. Okay, the next section is the part that is basically going to identify the kid as to what their disability or what their area of services is going to require. So special considerations the IEP team must consider before developing the IEP. Any factors checked as yes must be addressed in the IEP. So you have to go through this series of questions. Is the student blind or visually impaired? For our student, we're going to say no. If it was, the IEP would take a pretty serious change in some of the especially design instruction, and it would be very intense as far as the planning for that. So at this point, we're not going to have a student who's blind or visually impaired. Is the student deaf or hard of hearing? Let's say the student is. Okay, we are going to check yes on that. The IEP must include a communication plan to address the following: language and communication needs, opportunities for direct communications with peers and professional personnel if in the student's language. So this could be a language barrier also. Communication mode, academic level, full range of needs, including opportunities for direct instruction in the student's language and communication mode. Sometimes with students who have hearing aids, you're going to see a teacher with a microphone draped around their neck, so the student can hear much clearer when they are sitting in a general ed class or even a special education class. Okay, there is a special part of the IEP plan that is the communication plan, and you're usually going to have a specialist sometimes from the intermediate unit to come in to write those. Does the student have communication needs? Let's say for our case, this is no, but communication needs are going to be, does the student need speech therapy? Does the student need a specialized communication tool, for instance, an iPad that has options to say words if it's a nonverbal student who has communication difficulties? These are going to be checked a lot more. The prevalence for these is going to be a lot more when kids are younger, because speech therapy is going to be something that's going to be intensified when a student's kindergarten, first, second grade, sometimes even pre-kindergarten, when parents recognize the fact that maybe a kid needs some speech therapy. They may not be talking at all, or their language might be impaired. And there are services out there, parents, for you to get the services that you need to get your child treated. My youngest son, me personally, my youngest son got early intervention services for speech, and it made his kindergarten, first and second grade run a lot smoother. He got his starting at 3 years old, 4 years old, and then he transitioned into kindergarten and was quickly dismissed from the speech services. Does the student need assistive technology devices and or services? Students' need must be addressed in the IEP in the present level, especially design instructions and annual goals. We're going to check no on that, but that's going to be a section where you're going to have a kid in a wheelchair. You might need a special lift in the restroom. You might need a special lift to get them into the classroom. You're going to want to know, make sure your American Disability Act, the building is going to be accessible in all aspects. You're going to need maybe an iPad or some form of a laptop or a computer for a kid to communicate with if they are nonverbal. That sort of goes hand in hand sometimes with the communication needs. And the next one is, does the student have limited English proficiency? This is going to be for a non-English speaking student. People may have moved into the country, may have moved in from somewhere else. There are ESS English-speaking services, teachers specifically in almost every school district around to address this. And they're going to have adaptive machines. They're going to have ways for kids to communicate, and for the teachers to be able to communicate with the child who has limited English proficiency. The last part of this is, does the student exhibit behaviors that impede his or her learning or that of others? This is the population I am currently working with. I've worked with this population quite a bit, but if you check yes, the IEP team must develop a positive behavioral support plan that is based on a functional assessment, an FBA, of behavior, and that utilizes positive behavior techniques. Results of functional assessment of behavior may be listed in the present levels section of the IEP with a clear, measurable plan to address the behavior and the goals and specially designed instruction area of the IEP. The positive behavior support plan, this is a separate document that would be attached to the IEP. This is, and once again, in a future episode, I will break this down piece by piece for you, and so you understand exactly what a positive behavior support plan is. But what it does and what it brings, you're looking at the words positive behavior support plan. Well, you're going to write a behavior support plan for a kid who might be, who has a habit of swearing in class, or eloping from classrooms, or becoming physically aggressive. You're going to do a functional behavioral assessment to start with, till you have some data to work with, and then you're going to write a plan around that behavior in a positive manner to try to get the kid to shape their behavior into a more positive way to remain in their least restrictive environment. If positive behavior support plans are in place and there's data that shows that it's not being effective, that might be a means to put a kid in a more restrictive environment at some point. And that would require, obviously, an IEP team meeting and so on and so forth. Okay, next section is present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. This section here includes the following information related to the students. Present levels of academic achievement. Well, okay. That's going to include the most recent evaluation of the student, results of formative assessments, curriculum-based assessments, transition assessments, progress towards current goals. You're going to include their current report card grades in that. You're going to list you're going to put a statement in there of this student's birth date is this. This is, they are in 5th grade. They are 9 years old. Their current schedule, they are pulled out of class for reading support into a resource room. They are in a full-time placement to meet their behavioral needs or some life skills needs, things of that nature. There's another section, another part of the present levels, and that is the present levels of functional performance. These are where you're going to put your behavioral results, your data for the number of times a kid swears during a day, or a number of times they elope, number of times that they are possibly having maybe a restroom accident. It's a lot of some of the kids, some of the autistic support kids will come in not potty trained, and you want to get that process started. So this is functional performance, are things that a kid is doing that need to be addressed as far as behaviors and things of like the restroom things, and their transitional skills, moving from one place to another, how their disability affects their ability to do the transition things of that nature. You're also going to have present levels related to current post-secondary transition goals if the student is age 14 or younger, if determined appropriate by the IEP team. Results of formative assessments, curriculum-based assessments, and progress towards current goals. You're going to have some form of a individual conversation, or you're going to have some form of a survey for a student to fill out, or there are a number of different computer-based programs that will give kids interest areas. The state of Pennsylvania has many of those. You're going to list those, and you're going to talk to the kid and say, okay, when you graduate high school, what do you want to do? Are you going to go to college? You're going to go to a vo-tech school? You're going to go to a nursing school, or are you not going to want to go to school at all? You're going to go right to work. And then the second question is going to be, what do you want to do for a job? Do you want to be in a sheltered workshop? You would always have to explain to a kid what that is. Your kids with intellectual disabilities might end up in a sheltered workshop or something where there are plenty of adults to help them perform their job duties in a very restrictive environment. You're going to ask them, when they eventually are old enough, where are they going to live? They're going to stay with their family. They're going to live with a brother or sister. Are they going to, they're going to be, I want to be independent. The kid might say, I want to be independent. I'm going to go live on my own. I don't want anybody around me. Or, and some kids might say, I'm going to stay with my mom and dad, my mother and father, my grandparents for the rest of my life. That just depends on the kids' individual thoughts. And those are all written in the goal form in the transition plan, which I'll show you as we progress through this IEP. The next section is the parental concerns for enhancing the education of the student. Well, parents are a huge part of this. If you look at Public Law 94-142, parents have rights along with their child. And you should be reaching out to parents ahead of time, either via a phone call or a questionnaire. Hey, what are your concerns for the education of your student? They might be concerned about the number of classes that they're taking. It might be too heavy of a load for them. They might want them in more in a life skills type of thing. They might be concerned about behavior of other students. They might be concerned about their student being bullied, any number of different things. They might be concerned about having the school help them, help with maybe the potty training with a more severe student. Okay. And there's also a statement going to be written, how the student's disability affects involvement and progress in the general education curriculum. Ultimately, which in the first episode we talked about, the least restrictive environment is the general education curriculum, where a kid is sitting at a desk with a schedule every day in the general education classes. What makes special education special is this statement right here. How does the student's disability affect involvement and progress in the general education curriculum? Well, if a kid has learning disability in reading specific, that's definitely going to affect their progress and involvement in the general education curriculum. If they have a math disability, if they have emotional disturbance, if they're in need of autistic support, if they are they have a hearing impairment or a visual impairment, that is definitely going to affect their progress in the general education curriculum. You have to write a statement as to what exactly is happening. The next part of the present levels of educational and functional performance is the student's strengths. Is the student always willing to help others? Is the student a good writer? Does the student have good penmanship? Does the student have a strength in doing the basic 4 mathematic problems? Does the student want to help other students by being a volunteer? Does the student read well? Does the student have good reading fluency? Does the student have good reading comprehension? Those are all strengths of students, and that has to be written into the present end levels. The final is academic, developmental, and functional needs related to the student's disability. This is what makes special education special. If a student has a specific learning disability for reading, you have to write a goal for that. If a student has behaviors that impede their learning or that of others, you have to write goals for that. And these are the parts here. And you have to write them in a way. Student will improve mathematic operation skills. Student will improve reading fluency. That is the need area. Student will refrain from eloping from class or from the building. The student will refrain from using curse words during school time or class time. The student will refrain from disrupting class, or the student will refrain from any number of different things. These are the areas that need the student needs developed in relation to their disability. Okay, so that section itself is very intense. It's very information laden, and you're going to want to include as much information as possible without really overdoing it, because sometimes in the first IEP. You're usually going to get a lot of IQ scores, achievement test scores, rating scales for behavior. So, in your first IEPs, that's probably going to be a fairly heavy part. But sometimes, the amount of information doesn't need to be that heavy. Now, if it's a student with just a specific learning disability, it's not going to be a ton of information. If it's a student who's autistic support, and they may have autistic support, they may have Down syndrome, they may have bipolar disorder. That's going to be a very intense part of this IEP. And what this part is intended for is for anybody who gets this IEP, any general education teacher, or if a student moves to another school district, you should be able to pick it up and know a lot of information about this kid. It's a snapshot of their life at this point in time in their school career. So you want to know how they're achieving, how they read, how they do math, what their behaviors are like, what the disabilities they're bringing to the fold. Are they hearing impaired? Are they visually impaired? Do they need speech services? Do they need communication devices? I should be able to pick up an IEP at this point after reading this and know, okay, this is, if I have a new kid come in, that's the first place I look every time. It's the first place I check, because I want to know what this student's bringing to the fold. I want to know what they're going to do and how I have to go about handling their information. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to stop right here because that's a lot of information. The next episode, we will get into this section here, which is the transition services. So for right now, I'm going to minimize this here. I'm going to share this with you one more time. 6 basic principles of Public Law 94-142, which once again is No Child Left Behind. Free appropriate public education, non-discriminatory evaluations, least restrictive environment. We talked a lot about that. We are just covering now just the first couple parts of the IEP. This IEP stuff, these episodes, it's going to take a while for me to get through the whole IEP. I want you as a parent to know exactly what you're getting into, what you're looking at, what it should say, how it should be written. You have rights, and you have rights to due process. That would be episode 4 of Navigating Special Education. I hope that you as a parent or as a fellow special educator or a general education teacher or an advocate can take a look at this and gain some information maybe that you already knew or maybe you didn't know. The IEP is a very serious document. It is a legally binding document. It is something that you have to take the time as a parent to understand why this information is there, why your child is receiving these services, why you want to be in the know, because they are very wordy. They are sometimes difficult to understand. So take the time to learn and have an understanding walking in the door, so you can ask questions and understand what they're telling you, why they're doing this. So, once again, I appreciate your time. This is here to help you. I'm here, sitting here, taking time from my day to help you to understand what's happening with your child in special education. navspedpod@gmail.com for any information, any questions you might have. Future episodes, I am going to be answering some questions, and I do intend on bringing a fellow employee of mine at the school I work at. She is a parent of a autistic support student. She also is what's called a behavioral technician in the school I work in. She is going to be a source of really strong information and questions and maybe some perspective for people who have children with autism diagnosis and have children that are challenging, because she is super at what she does as a parent and as a fellow educator. So I will bid you adieu. Stay safe, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you.